right, everybody, Paul Stetzowitz here doing an update on the Bf-108. It's been a little bit slow progress on the aircraft because a lot of my time over the past, probably 3 months on and off has been the disassembly of the PBY Catalina, removing the tail, control surfaces, and of course the outer wing panels, which has been quite the job. So we're trying to get that finished up. But we've been doing a little bit of work on the 108. Work is progressing still on the right wing. We've actually installed a lot of the internal pieces inside the wing, and we're getting ready to close that up and do some riveting. So that doesn't look too much different from last time, but that is making steady progress. But we also been doing a little bit of work on the fuselage. Even though the fuselage isn't the main concern at this point, we're trying to get the wings finished, but we're trying to kind of get a little bit in depth on the fuselage and a few things that need to be done. In some of the other episodes, we mentioned the fact that the baggage compartment area had a bulkhead that was actually made up of magnesium, and this bulkhead was corroded due to the fact that somebody had glued in a headliner material that wasn't proper, and that glue set up some pretty bad corrosion. So we had to remove that bulkhead. I went in there a few weeks ago and drilled that whole thing out, which was pretty difficult. I was on my back the entire time drilling this piece out. That piece has been removed. We have to remake that component, but that gave us access to the damaged baggage compartment floor. We mentioned this also in a previous episode, and this is the piece. It's been taken out. I drilled this out, which was also very difficult to get out. And we've removed this for a few reasons. One, of course, to clean it up because it had a lot of old paint and everything on it, but the main reason being that when they added the extra fuel tank into the baggage compartment and they moved the battery into the baggage compartment, they drilled a bunch of holes into it. These two big holes here, a couple small holes here and there. And so we removed it with the intent that we were probably going to remake the entire piece. But as I took it out and I cleaned it up, I ran it through our plastic media machine and got all the old paint off it. It's in real good shape, no corrosion. But we found that to reproduce this thing would be very, very difficult. This thing is very complicated on how they actually pressed it. And because it's a tapered piece, it actually narrows as it goes from here to here. They actually folded the ends over and then bent it. Really, really complicated. It'd be very difficult to duplicate this. Also, the fear would be also if we did make another one, would it fit properly? Because this thing was really hard. Even after I actually drilled all the rivets out of it, I had a really hard time getting it out of the airplane because it's a really, really tight fit. So our plans, I decided, is basically to save the original piece. We're going to make a couple flush repairs to these big holes and through the small holes, make a nice clean repair, sand it, fill it with a little bit of filler, and then just repaint the piece and put it back in again. It's going to be fine just the way it is because, again, to reproduce this would be quite a bit of work and not really necessary. So that came out, and what was nice about getting the baggage compartment out, the floor, and also the bulkhead was it gave us access to that whole rear area, and it's a lot easier now to get back there and do some cleanup work. And another thing I noticed was that there were some skins in one of the other episodes on the side of the airplane that had these holes bored into it. These holes were put in here so they could access the clips to hold the seat in place. Those aren't supposed to be there. Again, I was going to do a repair on this, but then I realized once I got the baggage compartment floor out that this piece was actually a separate piece of skin. So I just removed it on both sides, and we're just going to remake this piece. Instead of doing a sloppy repair they were going to have to fill, we're just going to replace that whole thing. So that was a good plus there. That also, removing these skins, gave us even more access to the back, which is we're able to get in there, do a proper repair to the bottom on the belly of the airplane that has to be done, and also gives us more access to actually just get back there and clean up a lot of the old paint and everything. So this has really helped us out quite a bit, and I was very happy I can actually get that off of there. So that's coming along pretty well. Another thing that we had to remove off of the airplane was this component. This originally was actually kind of in a shape like this, and this actually goes up in front, and it forms the attachment for the instrument panel, and also the windshield piece goes into this, and then the oil tank is in front of it. This piece I removed because it had a repair that was done on the corner of it, which was not very nice. It's got some other little issues here and there, but the bulk of it was just as bad a repair. So we drilled all that off and found out that there was 3 components that were attached to this piece that are actually pretty involved. There's the former pieces that make up that attach into this piece that actually support it and attach the straps for the oil tank and various things. So these all cleaned up very nice. These are all going to be reusable. The instrument panel mounts, somebody had changed them at some point along the way. Somebody had added these, which are some homemade thing, which are not proper. So those were all pulled out. We're going to have to make new ones according to what's supposed to be in there. But at least these original components were good. This piece of skin is going to be easy to make. Most of the nut plates we're going to have to change on the back side. So that is going to get done down the road. It also gave us access to pulling out some more of the fuel vent lines. This is one that's in the back of the airplane. Gave us good access to getting that out of there. So that is making really good progress. We're waiting for some parts to come back. These rib pieces we talked about in the other episode that go on to here, those are still out being made. Leading edge pieces here are still being made. We're waiting those. So those hopefully will show up pretty soon. And also the fuel tanks. We talked about the fuel tanks in a bunch of episodes way back then, that the majority of the fuel tanks were in pretty poor condition. Those were a little bit beyond our capabilities, so we sent them up to Kevin Kimball, who's doing the Vega project. They have the pieces. They're doing some really nice work on those, cutting them open, cleaning them up, welding them back together again, and probably eventually making new fittings, because most of the fittings that went to the tanks were in poor shape, so they're probably going to do all that also. While we had the tanks up there, I talked to Kevin Kimball, and I actually had to have a few other things produced from him because he has the capability to do some really amazing machining work. They have a CNC machine up there, and one of the things I wanted to replace on the 108 were the jack pads. There's two of these on the bottom of the airplane that allow you to put a jack to do maintenance and things on the aircraft. Originally magnesium, of course they've used a lot of magnesium on this airplane. Really beat up pieces, really rough, so I decided, I don't want to put those back on the airplane. They look pretty nasty. So I gave that to Kimball up there, Kevin, and he machined us some new pieces. I mean, look at those things. They are really, really, really nice. What's really amazing is the CNC machine is actually able to machine the original part number into the piece. He got that part number from the original, and the machine was actually able to engrave that little part number into that. So that's really cool to see that type of work being done. Another thing that had to be redone, back on the horizontal stabilizer, on the 108, the horizontal stabilizer is trimmable, and there's actually a steel reinforcement piece that actually bolts back there, and this is where the tube runs up and down where the jack screw is. We took this off and it was cracked. We welded it. I sent it off for CAD plating. When it came back from CAD plating, it showed up crack again because it goes, of course, it goes through a heat treatment process when it's getting plated. So at that point, I figured this is not going to work. This is probably going to fail. If this fails, it's going to jam up. It's going to cause all kinds of problems. So I gave that to Kevin, and he machined us up a brand new piece. Beautifully done, fits like a glove. It's just gorgeous. So that's really nice to be able to have the capability to go to other facilities, to have people who are talented enough to make parts like this. A lot of shops do this. It's very common. You can't do everything in-house. It'd be nice to, but a lot of times it's actually cheaper and better just to have somebody else who has the experience make these parts. So, making good progress there. Wing is moving along, fuselage is moving along, but we had a really nice surprise about the engine that we're going to use in the airplane, so let's go check that out. Well, we're going to talk about the Argus engine for the project. When we first started this project, we of course decided that we were not going to use the original engine, even though it is overhaulable. But when we had purchased the Fuselage Stork a number of years ago, Kermit ended up with a lot of, he ended up with actually 3 overhauled engines, one of them being to be used in the 108 project and a spare engine for the Stork if we need it. So at that time, I decided, well, let me pull one of these engines down, get it, you know, so we have it right here for the project. So I pulled that first engine down and I opened up the big case that it was in, and I was actually a little bit disappointed in the engine. It's overhauled. We got paperwork. It shows it's overhauled, tested, and everything. But visually, I don't know. It just didn't look all that great. Now, of course, not sure who did the work, but when we do a restoration on an airplane, you go through all that trouble. When it comes time to put the engine on, you want an engine that looks just as nice as the rest of the airplane. So I was like, well, I guess I can work with this. We can clean it up the best we can. Maybe we have to repaint some things and replate some hardware. But then about a couple months ago, we had to pull down the DB605 that is actually going on the ME-109 or the Bf-109 project that just recently showed up. And that engine was sitting right kind of close to where the other two Argus engines were. So I thought to myself, let me pull these other two Argus down and see if any one of those engines looks a little bit better than the one I have. Also, I found a picture from way back that actually showed one of the new Arguses that had the carburetor and the intakes and the mags attached to it. So I thought, well, maybe one of these engines is up there. Maybe it's one of these engines. So I pulled it down, opened up the crate, and this is the engine that we found, and this is the engine that is going on the airplane. Just look at this thing. This is just gorgeous. Look at that. And it has everything on it, which is crazy because I actually pulled the carbs and the intake pipes and everything off of the other engine, thinking I was going to have to overhaul those. But then I pulled this and it has everything on it. So those pieces we're going to use as spares down the road, but this is the engine that's going in an airplane. You can tell if you compare it to the other engine that we first pulled down, it just looks so much better. And so very happy with that. I was very surprised, very excited that we had the engine that I was hoping for, because when you open up that cowling, boom, that's the engine that you want to see. So we're excited about that. So not going to be bolting that on anytime soon, but it's nice to have it here. I got all covered up and protected. This will allow us to hopefully down the road fit the engine mount, maybe do a test fit to the fuselage, but for right now we're just going to leave it right here. So as you can see, making slow but steady progress. Hopefully when we get past the PBY Catalina wing removal, I'll be able to spend a little bit more time on this, get back to riveting on the right wing and finishing that up. And then once that happens, we'll move on to some other small projects and we'll continue with the Bf-108. So come back next time and check out the next episode on this great project.